In this Autodesk Fusion tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can design a cable holder to cut on a laser cutter. We're going to use parametric modeling features in Autodesk Fusion, as well as some patterns and other techniques to quickly draw and then model a 3D form that then we will lay flat for laser cutting. The first thing to do is to remember rule number 1 in Fusion, and that is create a component. Select Create, New Component, then label your component. I'll call this Holder. Notice that now the component is activated. I'll create a sketch and I'll select the ground plane. I think it's going to be easiest if I use a center rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and create rectangle, center rectangle. That way, if I select on the origin in Fusion, I can drag out and it's automatically centered. I can type in some dimensions. For the depth of the rectangle, I'm going to make this 80. And then I think for the length, why don't we start with 400? We can always change these dimensions later. Next, I'm going to set a user parameter. Go to Modify, Change Parameters. Click the plus button, type in Ply, then use 3 for 3 millimeters and press OK. Press E for Extrude. It is already selected, and for the distance, let's type Ply. Now we have a board that we can cut our slots into for our cable holder. Now I'm going to create a new sketch, and this sketch will be used to cut out all the slots for the cable holder. Select Create Sketch, and instead of selecting on this face, because this face might change, I'm going to go ahead and select this ground plane. So now I can press P, project the geometry of the base plate, and press OK. And if I look in my holder component, I can twirl out the bodies and I can hide the body, and I still have this geometry. Sometimes this is an easier way to work in Sketch. There's no correct way to model in Autodesk Fusion, but this can be an easy way. Press R to get a rectangle and draw a rectangle. It doesn't matter what size yet. Now we can dimension it by pressing D, and here I'll type 40. And then for this width, for the first ones, I think I'll do something like 7.8. We can always change it. This will be for larger cables and other cords. You should measure the cords and cables that you have a lot of, and then type the dimension in for this. And then we also want to add a nice rounded arc here. So go Create Arc, 3-point arc. I'll select this point, then this point, and then bring it up here. And you can see it's locking to tangents. But for example, if you forget and you don't lock it to the tangents, you can simply press Escape, click the tangent constraint, select the arc, and then it'll automatically be tangent. One nice trick is select this line, then press X, and it will become a construction line. This is nice because we don't have to select everything. If this isn't a construction line, notice if I select, I can select these things individually and they don't connect. So select this line, press X, and it's a construction line. I'll also do the same thing down here. Select this line, press X, it's a construction line. Next, I want to add some sort of arc or opening so it's easier to put the cable in. So I'll create Arc, 3-point arc. I'll select here and then click on this line so it's coincident and just put an arc there. Now I need to move these points so they kind of look where I want them to be. Not exactly sure, so I'm just kind of feeling out the design. I think this curve on the left looks better, so I'm going to dimension that radius, and it's 30, so I'll type 30 for 30 millimeters. And then for this one, I can dimension the radius and click on this dimension. So now they'll be equal. There's a couple more things I need to do. I need to decide this height. See, as I move these around, that can change. So I need to define what that height is. I don't think it needs to be that far. Press D, select this point, and then this point, and let's make it 10. Nice 10 millimeters. And then we want to have these be centered. Many ways to do that. We could press L, draw a line from this point to the midpoint of that line, then draw a line from this point to the midpoint of this line. We want to make these construction lines, so click each line and press X, click this line and press X. Then with one of the lines selected, use the equal constraint and make them both equal. This automatically centers. So now if I drag this along, that will center automatically. So this is mostly fully constrained. So if I press D, I can click this center point, the edge of the line, and let's type in 24 would be a nice offset distance. The last part of the sketch to constrain are the two arcs. Notice that even though they're centered, I can still change the distance of how wide they get. So I'm going to put this to, I think, what a reasonable width is. Press D, select both these points, click, and I'm going to type 13. It's about 1/2 inch, so I think that'll be pretty nice for easy cable slide in. Excellent. So now I have a slot for my cables. I'll finish the sketch. Then I can re-show the body by clicking the eyeball in the browser. Press E. If you can't select this sketch because it's below, click and hold, then let go, and I can select that profile. And for the distance, I could type in ply, which works really well, and that'll automatically update. Or I could go the distance, and I could say to object, and click the top here. Either way works fine. Often I'll probably type in ply, because that way I know that I'm going all the way through and it updates. I'll press OK. Now I have a slot for one of the cables. Next, I'm going to create a pattern so I can have more slots. I'll select rectangular pattern, and by default it says bodies, but I want to select features. I'll select features, then it asks me what objects. I'll select this extrude. Then it asks which axis do I want to make the pattern on in Fusion. So I can select this axis, and then I can just drag this way. I can create the pattern by going to extent, which means for whatever distance it'll put in the number of slots I want, or I can do spacing. This is selected right here. I'm going to do spacing because I know the distance from the center to here. And so for the spacing distance, I'm going to say -24. This should create even spacing. And how many do I want? I think 5 is a good number. And then I press OK. I want to create something for smaller cables because some of the smaller USB cables might fall through this larger hole. So I'm going to create one more sketch. And once again, I'm not going to create the sketch on the actual board. I'll create it on this bottom construction plane. Then I'll press P to project, and I'll select this geometry and say OK. I can then hide the body. And if you see here, all of those pieces came through. I'm going to draw a rectangle, and this time I'll use some different constraints. I can use the horizontal vertical constraint to make this rectangle the same height as these pieces. I could have also given it dimensions, but this is just as easy. Then I'll press D, and I'll give this a width. And to make this smaller, I'm going to make it 5.5 millimeters. So let's see how it's just narrower. Create an arc, 3-point arc. Click this point, then this point, and I have those both tangent. While the arc tool is selected, I'll go ahead and draw these arcs. I'll keep the radius the same, so we'll type in 30. These could also be user parameters if you think you're going to use them a lot. We don't have to worry about this height distance because that's already locked in. We can set this distance. I believe we made it 13 before, so we'll keep it 13. And now we need to center them. That's simple to do. Press L for your line tool. Draw L to the midpoint, then one more line to the midpoint. Then we'll make both of these lines equal with the equal sketch constraint. Select these lines and then press X to change them to construction lines. Don't forget to change the construction line up at the top. Now everything is constrained about this sketch except for its distance, but we already know our center distance. Press D, select this center, and type 24. Now that is the same center distance and it looks nice and even. Finish the sketch, press E for extrude, select this face. We don't see anything to extrude, so let's go ahead and select the body to make it visible again. And this time I'll show you the other way before we did to the top. This time I'll type the distance as ply. Once again, I'll create a pattern. And this time I'll select features, the second extrude. The axis will be this one, and it's going to be in a negative direction. It already defaults to spacing, and I'll have the default spacing be -24. So it's the same as before. And I think I'll probably have a lot more smaller cables. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the number of smaller cables to 7 and press OK. My board is too long. I can easily fix that. So remember, our distance from the edge to the center and our distance from center to center is 24. So I can just count how many distances there are. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So if I go back to my original sketch here, right click on it, edit sketch, and instead of 400, I can type 24 times 13. Finish the sketch. Often Fusion updates automatically, but in this case, you can see this is an error. When Fusion updated the length of this, it kept all our dimensions the same. So if I open this sketch, you can see it's still 24, but occasionally Fusion will have something flip. So I'm going to delete that dimension, bring this over here, press D. I can once again dimension it from here and type 24, and that should take care of that. And if I finish that sketch, now you can see that everything is laid out fine. So I'll create a new sketch. And once again, I'm going to create it on this ground plane. If I select and hold, I can select the XY plane. I'll press P to project. That brings in all of the pieces. I can hide the body again so I can see clean sketching. And I'm going to add a rectangle on this side, a rectangle on this side. And then I could either add 1 or 2. I think I'll add 2 rectangles. And then I can use the collinear constraint to make these two the same height. For this one, I'll dimension it and type in ply. That's the thickness of our plywood. The same thing here. I'll type ply for the thickness of the plywood. And I'll dimension this edge here, ply for the thickness of the plywood. For this side tab, I'll dimension it 50, approximately 2 inches. And I think I'm going to make them all the same. So I'll just select this one, and then I can click this dimension, and it'll make it the same. Select this one, click the original dimension, it'll be the same. Select this one and the original dimension, and it's the same. These ones are very easy to position because I can select the rectangle and then this line with the midpoint constraint, and it'll lock it into the center. This one here, I can select this line, and now it's locked to the midpoint constraint. Here I have to be a little bit more creative. There are many ways to do this. One of my favorite ways is just to select this line here, the top, hold Shift and get the midpoint, select here, go to the midpoint, press Escape to get your selection tool in Fusion. Click both of these lines and press X to make them construction lines. Select the equal constraint to make them equal. We could automatically have it update by adding 2 more lines. If I press L, and from this corner to this top corner, and from this corner to this top corner, select the lines, press X to make them construction lines, make them equal to each other, and then lastly, make them equal to these lines. Now, no matter what I do, these will automatically center. For example, if I change this to 43, these stay in the center. So that's a really great way to quickly and economically use a triangle to center everything automatically. I'm going to change this back to 50 and then finish my sketch. I'll show the body again so we can see what we're going to do. I need to add those tabs. So I'm going to press E to extrude, select all these profiles, and the distance will be ply. By default, it should select join, but if it doesn't, you can select join and press OK. We are now done with this first piece. Go up to the top level component and select this little dot. If you have not saved your files, a good time to save. While you have the top level component selected, go create new component. I'm going to call this back. And now we're going to add a back support that'll go on the wall. Before creating my sketch, I need to set an offset plane. Select offset plane under construction planes. I'll select this plane and I'm going to go out this way. What is the distance? The distance is 80 divided by 2 because that is how wide this is. If this was a user parameter, I would type in depth, but we're just using standard numbers right now. And then I can press OK. So now I know that that is right on there, and this won't change, whereas this could potentially change. You always want to reference the origin whenever possible. I'll create a sketch, and my sketch will be right on that plane. Press P to project. Make sure you have the purple selection filter for entities. And for this, I'm going to select this face right here. You can see how that projects that in. And then I'll select this face right here. And that's all I need. I can press OK. I'll make sure I'm looking straight from the back, and I can hide the body so I can see what I'm doing. I'll press R for a rectangle, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle that's bigger. I'll give this dimension of 80 so it matches what we had before. And then I can easily make this a similar length by just clicking here. And I think I'll type ply just to give that a little bit of strength right on the edge there. Then over on this side, I'll do the same thing from this edge to this edge. I'll type ply. And then for the top, I just want a little bit of space up there. So let's type this as 15. I'll finish my sketch. And this time I'll go ahead and show that body again. But remember, we're in a new component. This is back. And I'll press E to extrude. And notice since we didn't make these construction lines, it doesn't extrude there. So make sure you click these two little squares. You could also make those construction lines so it selects the whole object. Now I'm ready to extrude. Pay attention to which way the arrow is going. I want to type ply and then press OK. This is great, except now we need to cut out these holes because we want these tabs to go in. So I can click the combine tool, use this as my target body. This is my tool body. The way to remember that is, what is the cake? This is the cake. This is the knife. I want to use cut, and I want to keep my tools. I want to keep my knife because I don't want to lose this piece. And I press OK. Now you can see it has those slots cut out. Next, go back to the top level component by clicking this little dot in your browser. And in Fusion, everything is the same default gray. We can help understand what's going on by clicking Inspect, Display Component Colors. Autodesk Fusion then selects some random colors so we can kind of tell that everything is a different component. If yours are the same color, you likely have two bodies that are either in the same component or not a component. So make sure that before you create your bodies, you create a component and are working in that component. For our last piece, we need to make a little structural triangle on the bottom. I'll create a component, new component, and I'll call it support. And I need to create a sketch. I'll create a sketch right on this plane here. And then I'm going to press P to project in. I need to get a few points. Make sure you have the purple selection filter. I'm going to select this edge, this top edge, and this bottom edge and press OK. Now I'm going to draw lines to make the triangles. I'll draw a line from here to here. And then I'll draw a line from here to here. And finally, I'll draw a line from here to here. I want to create a little slot on this holder. So what I will do is hide the other two components so I can see easier. Press R for a rectangle, and I'll draw a rectangle right here. Then I can press D to dimension this rectangle at 50. To center the rectangle, I can use the midpoint. Click the midpoint of this, then click and hold, and select the sketch line that is the rectangle. That should put it right in the middle. For the distance, click this line and type Ply. And then I'll draw some lines right here and right here. Press Escape, select this line, and make it a construction line. Now I can select this piece right here. I'll finish the sketch, bring back the other pieces so I can see what's going on. And now I need to extrude this. And I don't want this piece to be here. I want it to be over here. So if I press E, select the profile, and then this time the start will be from an object. So I'm going to start directly from this object on the edge. I'm going to go this direction, and the distance will be Ply. So now you can see that that piece is perfectly located on the edge right there. Press OK. Now I need to do a combine operation to cut this out. Select Combine. Remember, this is the cake. This will be the tool. I want to keep the tools and press OK. So now that slot goes right in there. But I really want to have a piece on the other side as well. So I'll go ahead and select the top level component, and I'll create a mirror, and I can select components, and the object will be this component. The mirror plane will be the center plane. And now this component is over here. If I press OK, you'll notice that I have a new component that will mirror that one. But notice that I don't have it cut through this back plate. That's simple enough. While I'm in the top level component, press Combine. This is the cake. I have two tools now. I have this one and this other support on the other side. Press OK. And now I have everything cut through. We probably want to have some sort of screw holes that we can attach this to a wall. So let's go ahead and activate the back component. That's the purple one in my particular Fusion file. Select this little dot, that'll activate it. Let's create a sketch. Once again, we can create a sketch on this back plane. Press P, select this face, and then press OK. If you can't see what's going on, we can hide the body in the back component. Press C, and let's draw some circles. I could draw one circle and then make a pattern, but sometimes it's just as easy to draw 3 circles and make them equal. It all depends on what design you're trying to do. For dimensions, I'm going to go ahead and press 9 for 9 millimeters. That means I can use a nice wall screw. That means I can use a nice hefty screw to put that on. I'll make each of these circles the same dimensions by clicking equals. I could also dimension them or make them equal. I'll use the vertical constraint. I'll use the horizontal constraint to click each of these dots, and that will make them so if I move them up and down, they move together. If I press L, I can use this line to the midpoint, this line to the midpoint, press Escape, select both these lines and click X to make them construction lines, and then make those lines equal. For this circle, we can use the vertical constraint to center it over the midpoint. And these two, we can use one more triangle by pressing L down to that point, L to this point. Press Escape, click X to make both of those lines construction lines. something that will keep these in the middle. I'll use the horizontal constraint, select one of the points, hold shift. That'll show the midpoint on this far line. Now we have everything locked in. I probably want to have these a little bit farther apart now that I'm looking at it. So I'll go ahead and delete this constraint. So now I can go ahead and move these over, and I'll think about how long this line is, and I'll say D, and let's just make this 50. So now those are farther over on the edge. Finish the sketch, press E, select all of these circles, show the body again so we can see which way we are going to extrude. In this particular case, we need to go farther than where we are because our sketch is over here. So we can go our extent type to object and select this back face. Notice that they go like a laser beam, and then we'll cut and extrude through here. Press OK, click on the top level component. Now we have a model that is ready to cut out on a laser cutter that will hold all of our random cables and USB cables. Hopefully you can make your own designs. This is easily modifiable, and then cut it out on the laser cutter. Happy 3D modeling.